Hello and welcome to another episode of the PHA Podcast. My name is Stefan Gillum. I am your host. As always, the PHA Podcast is presented by AMA Consulting Group, LLC. And on today, I am honored to have Miss Mary-Margaret Lemons with me, who is with the Fort Worth Housing Solutions, right?
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about Fort Worth Housing Solutions.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. This is really an honor.
Absolutely.
So Fort Worth Housing Solutions was established back in 1938. We are the housing authority for the city of Fort Worth. We have about 6,400 vouchers, 49 properties. We're coming up to 9,000 units, and we keep almost 45,000 people housed every single day.
Wow, that is a lot of people that you are helping to stay housed.
Yes.
Outstanding. So how did you get yourself into the affordable housing industry? What does your journey look like into this place in Fort Worth?
So honestly, I like to say housing found me.
Oh, okay.
So
Congratulations.
Right. I was an attorney by trade.
Okay.
And I started with the agency as general counsel. And so I was general counsel for almost 2 years, and then was asked to serve in an interim role while they did a national search, and ended up being the candidate for that national search. And I've been in this seat for about 6 years.
Oh, okay. And how do you love it?
Absolutely love it.
Yeah?
It's my passion.
Okay. So now that you are involved with Fort Worth Housing Solutions, were you ever just Fort Worth Housing Authority? Was there a branding change there? What did that look like?
Absolutely. There was a branding change. When I got to the agency, they had laid the groundwork, and we actually announced the rebranding about 2 months after I joined. So
Okay.
officially, we are the City of Fort Worth Housing Authority and Fort Worth Housing Solutions. We have two DBAs.
Okay.
So it was really a chance to tell the community what we do. We're not an authority. We're not a bureaucratic office. We truly are trying to help people find solutions.
In the realm of finding those solutions, tell me what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen that are kind of facing communities when it comes to affordable housing?
Well, obviously, just the general lack of affordable housing. We need more units. We need more units at every single AMI. Obviously, the lower ones are harder to create, but in Fort Worth alone, we have a lack of about 45,000 affordable units. And so we know we can't build our way out of this, right? So it's a combination of building, maintaining, and not letting the naturally occurring turn into new market rate, and then also paying people housing wages to make sure that they can actually afford these units.
And what type of strategies have you been able to invoke in Fort Worth that might be a little bit different than what we're seeing at other PHAs?
I would say Fort Worth's been pretty entrepreneurial. They have always had a strong development arm for about the past 25 years.
Yeah.
And so we partner a lot. We do public-private partnerships to partner with private developers to get more units on the ground at a faster pace.
Okay. And how's that going?
It's going well. We typically have about 5 projects under construction, somewhere around 1,500 units, with another 1,500 in the pipeline to get started.
Right.
So it's been a healthy way to create units in our community.
Now, I heard a little secret.
Oh, gosh.
I heard a secret that you once had a supervisor that challenged you to say yes and to be able to say yes. How has that kind of shaped how you look at your role at Fort Worth?
So as a baby attorney at a bank president who had been a commercial lender, he was like, you got to quit saying no to people. You need to find a way to say yes. And as a baby attorney, you are just, risk adverse, and you're trying to keep people out of trouble. And so that was a pretty big challenge for me early in my career. And when I got to the housing authority, it takes on a different meaning. We want to be able to say yes to people and keep them housed. We want to find a solution, whether it's working with HUD or our partners. And so it's thinking outside the box, being creative, sometimes taking calculated risks, but looking at my staff and say, how did you house somebody today? Right. We didn't look at a regulation and say all the reasons we couldn't do something, but what are some solutions that we found to make something happen?
And what have you found has been some of the most advantageous solutions that you've utilized? Programs that have been, lights out at the forefront of what you're doing at Fort Worth?
When I got in the seat, we were in the middle of a portfolio-wide RAD conversion, and we really took our time to make sure we did that well and correctly for our residents. And so we closed 25 RAD transactions, which that's a lot.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it necessarily the fastest or the cheapest way, but we did it in a way that really honored our residents and made sure that they had the choices that they deserved. And so it went smoothly as from, a resident perspective, and really gave them a lot of choice. And so I would say learning that lesson early in my career with HUD and other partners, that this is a collaboration. And if we all are going after, a goal that is honorable and good, people can get on board and make it happen.
Okay. Now, there's been I want to say a new movement, but it's not really a new movement, but there's been more steam pushed behind the movement of taking our affordable housing residents and moving them into home ownership and creating this channel, this pathway from homelessness to home ownership. How are you kind of working within that space in Fort Worth?
So we have a fabulous FSS program and a homeownership program, and so it's awesome. I wish we had more single-family homes that were at an attainable price.
Right.
Given the market, it's become challenging, but we work with our residents to get them ready for home ownership. One of my favorite stories, about 2 months ago, we had somebody that had been at our public housing site.
Right.
That was it's in the middle of a choice neighborhood conversion, so they received a voucher just about 3 years ago. And 2 months ago, they closed on their first home.
Nice.
And so to go from public housing to be a homeowner in 4 years is just
That's
really
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah.
So we work with our partners. We work on financial literacy and budgeting, and we bring in the experts to help our clients. And then we also partner and collaborate with lenders so they understand the program, realtors so they understand the program, so we can really make sure that our residents are getting the best of the community
Right.
when they're trying to make those transitions.
What would you say are some tips, strategies, advice that you would give to PHAs that are looking to implement some type of program to move from homelessness, from affordable housing into home ownership?
So I would say educate your community. When you go out and you put a face with a program and you're telling people about the services you offer, so many people don't even know that the home ownership is a possibility with a voucher.
Right.
And so many people want to just say Section 8 and they don't understand the power of a voucher. So, start with your elected, start with your partners at the city, but then go to your banks and go to your community groups. And once people understand who you are and what you're doing for the community, they want to be a part of it because a lot of them are trying to reach the population we're serving. That's CRA credit for the bank, right? That's a big deal.
It is a
And
very
once they
big
understand that you're a gateway to that, they want to be part of the solution too.
Yeah. So speaking of CRAs and the banks and all that kind of stuff, what would you advise for PHAs that are seeing a lack in funding but want to kind of increase the solutions that they're providing for their community?
First of all, know what funding's coming into your community, right?
Okay.
So read your city council agendas and minutes and, really understand CDBG, home, all of those funding sources that may not come directly to you, but you have things that could access and could utilize those funds. Even at the state level, the states are a big funding source. And then also understand what your partners are doing, because sometimes collaborating on a NOFA may be a better result than if you had gone in by yourself.
Right.
And so, we look at all types of funding. And typically, if you're familiar with HUD funding, you already understand how to comply with all the restrictions.
Yes.
And so you already have a leg up on people. But we just closed a deal that had 13 different funding sources. So, you can
And
layer
so
them
many,
in there.
yeah, so many are looking at just this one funding source, or maybe two or three. You're talking about you had a deal that had 13 different funding sources. That's a lot of pulling resources in to get the goal done.
Absolutely. And you have to be creative sometimes, because who knew, right? Interest rates were going to go through the roof and construction costs were going to go through the roof. And, we can't control everything, but typically if you have the right people involved and everybody wants to get to yes, you can make it happen.
So your agency has done something very innovative that many agencies have not done. And I want you to kind of speak to that for me a little bit. You've implemented a 4-day work week. What drove you to making that change? And then how's it turned out for you?
Sure. So I copied somebody. Some of my best work is completely taken
Listen,
from other people.
Most of the time, there are some amazing people doing some amazing things out there, and you just say, you know what, we can do that too.
Absolutely. So I believe in working smarter, not harder. But our agency had implemented summer hours when I got there. And so they were working a half day on Fridays from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And I kind of looked around when I got there and I was like, okay, by the time people get in and get their coffee and maybe, turn on the computer and check a few emails, they're like, oh, time for lunch, got to go. And I was like, but we're still getting all the work done that, we need to get done. And so between the hiring market and, housing authorities are thought of being kind of an old governmental bureaucratic place to work. How are we going to attract and retain top talent? What can we offer?
Right.
And we don't necessarily have the privilege of offering really high salaries. I think our benefits are pretty competitive and things that you can't get necessarily in the private market. But I said, let's be European for a minute and let's see if this works. And so we adjusted to a 34-hour work week. We worked 4 days a week. And we adjusted everybody's pay to maintain their 40 hours. So no one lost money in the deal. And it was a transition. A lot of people were skeptical. They said, how am I going to
Right.
get all this done? And for me, I really wanted to instill kind of a work hard, play hard attitude across the whole organization. I want you guys to go and take your time. I mean, if you want Fridays to be a volunteer day at your kid's school or
Yeah.
go take care of your doctor's appointments, I want you to be able to utilize that for you.
Right.
And so it's taken us a minute. We did it before COVID. We kept it through COVID. And now we've actually offered a lot more flexibility with telework. So
Okay.
I think that's kind of the wave of the future. And if you're not going to adapt and change, you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely. Remote work is everything.
Yes.
Right now. And if you're not able to allow your workforce to find a way to work remotely, you're actually missing out on opportunities. We found that remote workforces will actually sometimes do more work
Absolutely.
than the workforces that are in the office every day.
I know if I have very seldom do I get to actually work from home, but if I do, I start my day earlier and I work through and usually later because I'm not in traffic,
Exactly.
I'm not traveling for calls and meetings. And so I get a lot more done. But the other thing I think that we did is we actually converted to just Teams for everything. So instead of having hard set phones, all of our phone calls come through the computer now. And so it follows you when you take your laptop home to telework. And it also makes our office really quiet. Everybody has a headset and we have a very open, we're kind of like a Google housing authority, very open concept, lots of glass. And I thought that we would have some people just really revolt, but everybody stuck with us and it seems to be working really well.
Okay, very cool. Now, you've got another interesting distinction being in Fort Worth, and that's Dallas, right? And so you're sitting there with this huge megacity right beside you. How, as a PHA in Fort Worth, how do you guys maneuver around the fact that you've got this megacity sitting right beside you and sometimes eating up a lot of resources?
So I would say DHA is, in our shadow. I'm just kidding.
I love it.
No, we love Troy. Troy's a good friend, great colleague. We love to have a large agency next door to be able to call.
Right.
Fort Worth and Dallas have two completely different vibes. We have two completely different political scenes.
Right.
And so, I'm glad to be in Fort Worth. I'm glad Troy's in Dallas. And we have the field office in Fort Worth. So I think that in some instances that's more helpful for us because we're just, around the corner. But we're just different. Fort Worth is just a different speed. And we are able to get things done collaboratively. And I think sometimes being in a larger city, that makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's got more boxes to check and people to chat with. And Fort Worth's a big old small town. We may be the 13th largest city in the nation, but it still feels like it did 25 years ago when, you saw everybody at the grocery store.
And so what I'm hearing you say actually is that it's important for PHAs to kind of understand who they are within their own agency, within their own community, and kind of hold on to that identity, right? If you're going to be the biggest small town, be that. And don't try to be a Dallas. Don't try to be a smaller town. Be exactly who you are and fit your agency to match the community that's around you.
I love Fort Worth because it's a collaborative community and we really try to get things done, without fanfare.
Right.
We just want to get the work done. We can share in the success and everybody can get credit for it. But our agency is not out there trying to say, give us the gold sticker.
Right.
We just want to house people. And so we know that it's going to take a lot more people than just our housing authority. And we want to be a good partner. So when people see an opportunity, they say, let's call them because we know they can deliver.
Right. Very awesome. Okay. So it's hot seat time.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an imaginary megaphone, right?
Okay.
It's a magical megaphone. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue? Mine too. It is a blue megaphone. Sparkles or no sparkles?
All the way sparkles.
Okay. Blue with tons of sparkles all over it. And the magical thing about this megaphone is the minute that you pull the trigger on that megaphone to start speaking, everybody in the affordable housing industry stops what they're doing. They listen to you. They listen intently. They give you their undivided attention. And whatever it is you say, they're going to implement. They're going to actually put it to work. What is it that you tell the affordable housing industry?
Gosh, just one thing?
Oh, you can tell them anything you want. You got the megaphone, pull the trigger and let it out.
We all know we need more housing, but we know that the funding's not going to just magically appear, but let's try to figure out the triggers we can pull. So whether it be the waivers from COVID that we saw worked so well in such a uncertain time, let's implement those, right? We were able to keep people housed, and that's our goal. So I would say let's work together to figure out the policies we can change to be more effective and efficient with the resources that we do have. And please, please, please collaborate. Why are we being competitive? We are all serving the most vulnerable people, in the world. we shouldn't be competitive over that. We should be working together to make our services and resources go further. So I would just say call on your other housers and then be someone that they can call on, answer the phone. And, there's no secret sauce to this.
There really isn't.
And so share, learn and share. Those are the big things for me. I didn't get to where I am by reading regulations.
Right.
I read those, but then you have conversations on how you actually implement these successfully. And so be somebody that will help somebody else, because we need a whole new generation of housers. We have a lot of people retiring and getting out of this industry. And so that knowledge is going with them unless we open up and talk.
And you're absolutely right. We've got, there's the understanding of the regulation and the policy, but there's the application of the regulation and the policy. And that there's a learning gap between that really needs to be filled. And we can only fill that if we're collaborating and sharing with each other. Absolutely. Mary-Margaret Lemons with Fort Worth Housing Solutions. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you joining us on the PHA podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And you can find all the previous episodes of the PHA podcast. Just go to amaconsultinggroup.com and click on that button that says PHA podcast. We'll see you next time.